Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Katherine Sharon Zoom baking classes. We've had a few weeks off, but we're very happy to be back, and we have our very good friend, Wendy Bensussen, who's going to be doing our demo today, and she's going to be doing Sevoyas Reynadas, which is stuffed onions. So, Wendy, please take it away.
Hi, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Wendy Bensussen. I'm born and raised in Seattle. My sister and I grew up here. For those of you who don't know us, when we grew up, we were considered from a mixed marriage because our mother was Ashkenazic and our father was Sephardic. In those days, that was considered a mixed marriage. Our Aunt Babe, Louise Bensussen, made it her mission to make sure that Gail and I knew all the Sephardic delicacies. You know, those things that she was very good at, she made sure that we knew how to cook. And those things that she didn't feel that she was so good at, she made sure that other people helped me with. So Sevoyas was not something that she made all the time. So she had, the other thing I want to say is that I never knew exactly who I was related to in this community and who I wasn't related to, because in the 70s when we were growing up, or the 60s when we were growing up, you didn't call people by their first names. Everybody was your auntie or your uncle. And Gracie Azos lived across the street from my grandmother. And she was a very close family friend, but we didn't call her by her first name. So she was Auntie Gracie, and she was my cousin's auntie. So I thought she was my auntie. So anyhow, Gracie taught me how to make Sevoyas. So I'm using her recipe. And it might be a little different than somebody else's. She liked more tomato sauce on her Sevoyas. So I'm just giving you that. Anyhow, so we're gonna make Sevoyas today, and I've prepared a little bit. Anyhow, here we go. So I gave you the recipe. I tend to have a lot of anxiety, so I have to prepare in advance always, and I have everything prepared. And I'm just gonna start here by, I've pre-cut most of my onions here in the pan, and I'm just gonna finish off because I want you to see how I do this. I cut the bottoms off.
I'm Alicia, I'm her daughter and her lovely assistant.
Hi, Alicia. Nice to have you helping.
So my mom was talking about being very prepared. One of the things that makes her very prepared is that she prints out a copy of the recipe and tapes it to her cabinet so she can reference it at all times.
Whenever it's holiday time, in August for Rosh Hashanah, I start getting out all my recipes and I put them up all along the cabinets. I start cooking about a month in advance and filling my freezer for Rosh Hashanah, and about a month in advance for Pesach. I clean out the freezer, start cleaning my kitchen, and do the same thing for Pesach.
Correct.
So you're not feeling stressed that Pesach's 2 months away?
I'm feeling very stressed because who knows whether you can have company. I don't know if you noticed, but Alicia's a little bit pregnant here.
Escampiento bueno.
Okay, so we stuff the onions, but we also use onions in the hamburger. So what my mom is doing and what she's done over here, I'm gonna go a little closer, is the pan has the onions ready to go to be stuffed. You can see in the shadow they're emptied out. So the onions that are gonna go with the hamburger are actually the inside of these onions, and that's what she's doing now. She's cutting up the onion in half. She's gonna scoop out the middle and chop it up to put in the hamburger.
No, I don't put it in.
Oh, you don't put it in. Okay, never mind. Chop it up and use it for something else in the recipe.
I cut off the back side so that it lays flat in the pan. And I scoop out the middle to stuff. I take the onion at the point and I scoop out a few of the middle. So
got to use all of the onion, right? Can't throw anything away.
Can't throw anything away. Auntie Babe was always very clear that you can't throw anything away. The most famous story in my family is about in August, Auntie Babe would always come over for a few baking days in the summer. We would make keftes de prasa for Rosh Hashanah.
Leek patties.
Leek patties. And one of the things that I would do would be to, I would cook the leek in preparation for making leek patties. And she would always ask me, well, what did you do with the water from cooking the leek? And I would put it in the refrigerator and save it. And she would say, don't throw that water away. You can use it to make soup. And I would always save it until she left. And then I would throw away because it always had so much sand in it, you could never use it. But I would never tell her because chas v'chalila, I would throw it away. She would say that was so wasteful. And to this day, I still save the leek water until after I've made the leeks. Because you never know, and then I throw it away.
You can make it into soup.
There's a question in the audience here, Wendy. Are you using more than one layer of onion?
Do I? Yes, I use more than one layer of onion. I take out the middle about 3 or 4 layers, but I use about, I think about 3 or 4 layers of onion to fill.
Okay, good. And tell me, Wendy, what type of meal would this be for? Would this be a Friday night dinner? Is this a weeknight dinner? What type of meal is this?
Generally, I use stuffed onions for Sukkot, but then every once in a while, for a special occasion, they're an hors d'oeuvre. I usually serve it over a bed of rice. Sometimes I can use it for a Friday night meal, just for, you know, with rice itself, you know, juice, you want to chew with these. Okay, John, I'm going to have you come and saute the onions.
I'm getting the suspicion this is a nice wintry, fall type dish.
Yeah, it's a fall type dish. But you know, with Sukkot, Rabbi, you can talk about this, is a time when we eat a lot of stuffed vegetables. Ashkenazim have stuffed cabbage. We do stuffed zucchini, stuffed onions, stuffed tomatoes.
Stuffed peppers.
Stuffed peppers. I can't remember exactly what the tradition is about being stuffed. Also, they do, yes, Ashkenazim, 3 times a year they do
the kreplach.
Kreplach. So remind me, what's that tradition about?
Yeah, so this is all to do with, the kreplach is a slightly different one, but this one is to do with, it's a symbolism of a Torah, the stuffed thing. So it's something around Sukkot and also around Sefer Torah.
Okay, I'm just going to do a camera adjustment. So after you chop up the onions, we're going to saute the onions. And I'm just going to move. Oops. Trying really hard not to screw this up. All right. Move it around.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
Oh, that's my stepdad, John.
Splendid.
And I'm actually going to hold it. I know it's going to be a little shaky, but I want to make sure you can see the inside of the pan.
So John's just going to saute the onions, so I'm going to mix up the hamburger here.
Okay, and for the benefit of everyone here, you're just using regular vegetable oil?
Just regular vegetable oil and sauteing the onions until they're translucent. And the onions that are sauteed go in the bottom of the casserole pan underneath the onions that are stuffed.
What are you putting in the hamburger?
Okay, now in the hamburger, and some people do this, there are 2 ways that this can be done. One is that the onions can be cooked in the saute pan in the same pan that you brown them in, and some people put them in a casserole dish. My preference is to cook them in a casserole dish in the oven. Some people like to continue to cook them in the saute pan. So we're going to do it my way because I'm doing the hosting here. So I'm mixing up now the hamburger. I put into the bowl here 1 pound of hamburger, 1/8 a cup of rice, half a teaspoon of ground pepper, 2 tablespoons of parsley, and a teaspoon of salt. And I use this thing from Pampered Chef. It doesn't mash the hamburger, because if you mash the hamburger down too much, you want to keep a lot of air in the hamburger. It tastes like sawdust in your mouth, and you don't want to mash it too much. You want a lot of air in the meat so that it remains flavorful and loose. So I'm just going to mix up the meat.
And just confirming, you're using raw rice, right?
Raw rice, raw rice. And I used to use Uncle Ben's converted rice, and I stopped doing that because it doesn't absorb the liquid as much. Now I use basmati rice. It does a better job of absorbing all the liquid. You want all that flavorful liquid to stay in your meat.
Does it make a difference what type of rice you're using?
You just want to make sure to use raw rice that really is going to absorb all the liquid.
And again, what's the name of that tool you're using, the gadget?
It's from Pampered Chef, and it's called a,
Any chance that
is Sherry Green
on the call? Can she add to the chat?
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't think she's on this time.
Okay, it's called a, I don't remember.
I know that we have one at home similar, so I'm not sure what we call it either. It's the black thing for playing with the meat.
Yeah. It's called a crush and chop or something like that.
Rabbi Hassan, someone just commented. Can you read the comments?
Yes, what is it? They were asking about the name of the hamburger gadget. And here it was, do you ever use day-old bread instead of rice? It's from Judith Cohen.
Some people use day-old bread. I use rice. It doesn't matter, it has the same idea.
Marlene says that normally she boils the whole onion first and then peels each leaf. But she thinks that your method it might be easier.
Yeah, I think if you have to use a day-old bread, if you have to boil the onions first, that's a lot of work.
And Betty's helping us. It's called a Pampered Chef Mix and Chop.
Thank you. That's exactly it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, give me the board back. Where's the board?
John has it. He's bringing it over to me.
Wendy, when do you decide that you want to make something Sephardic and when you want to make something Ashkenazic?
When do I decide? Oh, so one of the advantages of having a Sephardic grandmother and an Ashkenazic grandmother is that I really honestly, when I was growing up, I used to think that the Sephardic day was the first day of Yom Tov and the Ashkenazic day was the second day of Yom Tov. And so on the first day we had gefilte fish, and on the second day we had pescado con huevo limon, or vice versa.
From my experience, either we did both or it depended on the holiday. Like I remember that Sevoyas Reynadas was always a Sukkot dish, and pescado con limon was Rosh Hashanah and Pesach. And we would have gefilte fish and pescado both nights when I was growing up.
I've never heard that before.
So my sister Gail's daughter, likes her gefilte fish with the caldo from pescado. So you just take a teaspoon and you fill the onion. You don't want to pack it too tight.
Caldo is Ladino for the sauce.
We're all being very quiet now. They're watching you filling the onions. This is good. And you're not overly filling them. You're being gentle there, I'm seeing.
Yeah, you want to, yeah. Because you also want to give room for the rice to expand. Because you want to absorb all that good gravy.
And meanwhile, John is patiently sauteing the onions in the background.
I was going to get out some pictures. I wanted to show everybody a picture. When my grandfather came here in 1919, he came with Bensussen Jerusalemi, and they went down to the Pike Street Market, and they went to a Western shop to take a photograph, and dressed up in cowboy gear to send it back to Turkey to let everybody know that they were safely in the Wild West, and I forgot to pull out the picture to show everybody.
Huh?
I think the synagogue has it in the archive somewhere, the picture.
Did he throw fish?
What?
Oh, that was before they started throwing fish.
He did not throw fish. He was a machinist.
Yeah, a lot of the families who came to SBH in the early days were fishermen, but our family was not.
What did your family do?
My my uncles had a box factory in Aberdeen. My grandfather was a machinist.
And his kids went to college. So my grandfather was a lawyer, and my great uncle was an engineer for Boeing.
And my cousin Tommy Roderick was in the Seattle Symphony.
Okay, we're getting close, and once they're stuffed, I'm gonna lift
Wendy,
it.
we're going back a step. What type of onions do you use?
Just plain yellow onions, but you have to make sure to try and find them that are about the size of a tennis ball. Not too big, not too small. And usually it takes about 6 or 7 to use a pound of hamburger. I think I got too many here today, but it's all right.
Can you show us your tray?
I was gonna show the tray after she completed the.
Okay. Yeah, you're overexcited.
Okay.
Okay, wait, can you, since we started back at the onion, hi, I got my onions, I'm cutting them, but I missed the steps around it. So can we start back and go quickly and explain it again?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Sharona?
Okay, so I got the onion preparation step, but while doing that, can you explain what you did around the meat again?
Oh, okay, so I just dumped all the meat in the bowl. I chopped it up gently with a chopping, whatever it's called. I threw in a half a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of parsley, and 1/8 of a cup of parsley, chopped parsley. And I mix, oh, I forgot the egg.
Yeah, I was wondering about the egg.
The egg is for the dip.
No, I forgot the egg in there. It's gonna be all right. All right.
So Wendy, tell us about the egg. What do you do with the egg?
You beat an egg and you mix it in with a hamburger, but we're gonna live without it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Rubisa, I guess you're okay. You're a couple of steps behind because you can add the egg to that mixture.
Okay. Usually I put an egg into the hamburger, Sharona, but I'm gonna live without it today. So then when I saute the onion, John sauteed the onion for me.
Can you show us your part? We can't see it so well.
Hold on, I'm gonna show you 1 second. So all the onion that's sauteed lays in the pan like this. Can you see? Wait, this cord is in the way.
Sorry.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spread out evenly on the bottom.
Okay, now I'm gonna go over to the fry pan.
Wendy, Judy Cohen's just saying it's basically the meat mixtures like keftas, right?
Exactly. Okay. Now, Alicia,
We're gonna readjust
switch
again.
over. I'm gonna move over here.
Oh, hold on a second. I'm gonna need something else.
Okay, Wendy, what are you doing now?
Now I'm gonna brown the Sevoyas. So you're gonna heat up about 1 inch of oil to about medium high. And we're gonna dip the Sevoyas first in flour, then in the meat side. First I take flour, about 1/2 cup of flour. I put in a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper in each bowl of flour. And I beat an egg with a little bit of water. And I'm going to use my hands.
And then put it back in the flour again.
So I'm going to dip it in the flour, just like this, then in the egg, then in the flour, and then I'm going to put it in the oil. And you don't want the oil to be, it's medium hot.
How long does it go in the pan for?
You just want it to get a little brown. And then after they brown a little bit, I turn them over and I cover the pan and let it cook for about 7 minutes until the onions start to soften. And then I put them in the casserole dish and I cover it with tomato sauce. And I sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top to take away the bitterness from the tomato sauce. And then I cover it with a parchment paper and then foil, and I put it in the oven and bake for an hour.
What's happening with the onions you fried, which were being sauteed?
They're in the bottom of the casserole dish, and the Sevoyas are going to sit in that casserole.
Got it.
When I'm done sauteing them.
So when they're done sauteing, they're gonna go on the bottom of the casserole, tomato sauce on top with a little bit of sugar, parchment paper, foil in the oven.
Love it. You can't go wrong with sauteed onions.
Nope.
It's the hero of every dish.
Yeah. And when you bake it and you put the tomato sauce on top and you cover it, it makes this wonderful gravy. Everything gets all soft. And then I actually freeze it. And it all, when you reheat it, in a minute, I'm going to take one out of the oven that I made in advance. So through the magic of TV, I can show you the finished product. It all makes this wonderful gravy that you serve over the rice. Like I say, some people don't make it this way, but this is how I like it.
And this way was a faster way or just the way you learned it?
Just the way I learned it.
Knowing my mom, it's also probably a faster way and simpler way.
And also the way that I could reheat, make it ahead and freeze it, because everything I did, I had to make in quantity and put it in the freezer because I was working full time and had 3 kids, and I liked to entertain back in those days when we could entertain and have company.
She mentioned my Auntie Babe coming over in August. We do 2 sessions, one in the summer and one just before Pesach. And we'd sit at the kitchen table and we'd make 75 brekas and, 50 quesadillas de pasta, and we made pescado con limón.
No, we didn't make that. We made bulemas, we made bizcochos. We just make everything that we could freeze.
And just fill up the freezer.
We made frittadas.
Frittadas. 3 to 6 at a time.
My son used to like to bring his friends home, and I learned the hard way that you always have to have extra frittadas, because one of his friends, I would always have, cheese frittadas and spinach frittadas and
Matzo pizza
and Pesach and zucchini frittadas. And one day he was like searching around my kitchen. I'm like, what were you looking for? He's like, I want a piece of spinach frittata. Well, that's all gone. There's this. No, I only want a piece of spinach frittata. From then on, I always made 3 spinach frittatas.
just in case.
Just in case. One wasn't good enough.
I'm gonna have to do this in batches.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, do you freeze them before or after the cooking?
I'll bake them for about a half an hour and then I'll freeze them. And then when I take it out, they won't be completely cooked. And when I take it out, I'll freeze it. I'll bake it again for another half an hour or so. So they'll be partially cooked, but not completely. And like if I make burritos to freeze, I'll bake them part way, you know, so they're just about done, but not completely, so that when I warm them up, they don't get burnt.
Can you explain what a frittata is for everyone?
It's quadrado. It's spinach. You know, it's a spinach pie.
Spinach, matzo farfel,
Matzo meal,
matzo
I'm
meal,
gonna call it a spinach kugel.
and cheese.
spinach.
And in the spirit of what Wendy just suggested, I am making 3 of them right now.
What are you making?
3 frittatas, 3 spinach frittatas.
Wow. While you're also making the Sevoyas. There you go.
I also have compote and sourdough going right now.
Right?
Okay.
Deviled compote
It's
and
busy.
cider.
Okay, there you go.
You can make it all at once and then you freeze it and you use it when you're ready.
And what temperature are you going to bake them at?
What temperature do you bake it at? 350 for a half an hour, and then again 350 for a half an hour when you take it out. Do you defrost it before you put it back in the oven? Yeah. So you defrost it first and then put it back in the oven. Are you ready to turn them? And again, how long do you have on each side? How long do you have the onions on each side?
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes on each side.
Yeah, again, how long was it on each side?
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
Until they're done. I mean, it's hard, you have to go by what they look like. So, one. Okay. Where's the cover?
The cover, they moved it over. So about 5 minutes on the side with the flour, and then turn it over and put the cover on for how long?
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes. So how do you know when it's brown enough?
You just have to check it. So I have a funny story. When I was first married, I had an aunt who was a very good baker. My Ashkenazic aunt, my Auntie Anna. And she made something called putterkichel. And I very much wanted to learn how to make these putterkichel. And she said, well, you know, I can't really tell you the recipe. You're going to have to come over and learn how to make it with me. And I said, okay. And, you know, anybody who knows me knows I may wake up in the morning, but nobody should dare talk to me before 10 o'clock in the morning. And so she said, well, just come here at 7 in the morning on Friday morning. I said, yeah, okay, I'm done. I'll be there. So I get up and I go there, and she says, okay, the first thing you do is take enough flour to make a dough. It's like, what's enough flour to make a dough, Aunt Anna? So she makes this big mound of flour on the table. I said, do you have a measuring cup? She said, what's a measuring cup? So I said, well, let's get a cup and we'll measure it. So she takes this my great grandmother's teacup, and I start measuring the flour, and then, you know, and everything is like that. And she says, and you take about this much butter and about this much cream. And so I'm measuring everything. And then I'm like how am I ever going to figure this out? And so she gave me this teacup and she said, okay, now you take this home and you use it and you figure it out. And so I tried to figure it out. And I think it was 20 years later, after I had been making challah for a number of years before I ever tried to make that recipe. And now I can make it quite well, but it's, in family lore, enough flour to make a dough.
And I think it was before my bridal shower or before
No,
someone's bridal
Before
shower.
my cousin Nancy Israel got married the second time that I made the putter kechel for the first time.
No, that's not what I was going to say. You emailed all of the cousins, and asked them for a recipe for cheese dreams, which is another thing that Anna made, or no, was it
Cousin Marion.
cousin
Cole.
Marion Full on the other side of the other side. Anyway, she emailed all of the cousins and asked them for this one recipe, and they all came up with, I think it's this. I'm not sure. My favorite one was one of the emails ended salt ? Pepper ? Smiley face. No one was exactly sure, and so my mom printed all of them out, and she keeps them in a binder with her recipes.
And then fast forward to this era of Zoom, I was invited to come on a cooking Zoom from Beth Shalom, and they made these cheese dreams on that Beth Shalom Zoom. And it turned out that this woman from California who was doing this Zoom and making these cheese dreams had been related to this cousin of mine through marriage and was making the same cheese dreams.
She's just checking on the onions. Do we have any questions?
Okay, right now.
Okay, let me see if I can move the, oh, my mom's gonna come over with the pan. What if I have the pan? Okay. Put that back down.
Is there any onion in the meat mixture?
No.
The onion goes on the bottom of the apple.
All right.
I'm just gonna pick this up and show you what the onion looks like when it's been cooked on both sides. It's a very delicate procedure because the onion is so soft that it might just fall apart when you put it in the pan.
And are you putting that meat down or onion down?
Onion down.
I'm getting peckish watching this.
Oh, you're not even smelling it. It smells so good.
Huh?
Really need to do this in front of a pregnant lady, Emma.
Let me ask you this: how the rice is going to expand without any liquid?
It's going to have tomato sauce on the top.
And the juices of
Okay, thank you.
Okay, John, can you do that last one? Yeah.
There was one onion that didn't make it into the pan because the pan was too full. So how much tomato sauce are you putting on top?
Enough.
Enough flour to make a dough.
Okay, I usually use like a 15-ounce can of tomato sauce, crushed tomatoes. And I put like a big tablespoon on top of each tomato.
Can you see?
Perfect.
And you mentioned sugar on top of that?
Yep.
Do you have an amount of sugar that you put on top? Just kind of.
I use a tablespoon. It just, The tomato has a little bit of bitterness in it. And so you just put just a tiny bit just to take away the bitterness.
Okay, so to be clear, you don't use like tomato sauce. You
No,
use
it's crushed tomato or tomato puree.
Okay, which explains why it's a little bitter because it doesn't have anything else in it.
Right.
You missed that one. You missed a spot. I'm so helpful.
So you see this?
Thanks, Alicia.
Okay. No, is the other one? I'm gonna take the other one.
And then you put parchment paper on top of this and tin foil on top of that and put it in the oven at 350 for a half an hour. And again, this is if you're freezing it. Ema, do you know the difference in time if you're not freezing it?
If you're not freezing it, just do it for an
If you're not freezing it, if you're eating it immediately, then you cook it for an hour.
Yeah, so that's what we talked about. It's 1 hour if it's going to be straight, and if otherwise it's half an hour freeze and half an hour when reheating.
And defrost before you put it in the freezer a second time.
And this is
The magic of television.
and through the magic of television, here's a prepared batch. Okay,
And this is after half an hour.
and this is after half an hour.
And are we going to watch you eat it as well?
What?
We're
No,
gonna-
I'm not gonna eat it because I don't want to be meat during the middle of the day, sorry.
And also it's not fully cooked. It's only been a half an hour.
No, it's fully cooked.
Okay, it's fully cooked.
Okay, all right. Any questions?
Any questions for the chat, or feel free to unmute? Okay, thank you very much, Wendy. This was wonderful watching you and Alicia and John teaching us how to do Sevoyas Reynadas. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you,
Not as good as being there, darling, but it's great to see you.
thank you. And you know, for those, anybody who's vegetarian, you can use meat substitutes. You can do it with rice and cheese. You can fill it with anything you want to.
I was going to ask you, can you do this with Impossible Burger or with turkey or with chicken?
Yeah, and you can actually, some people I know have done onions filled with eggplant, so you can fill it with anything you want to. Okay.
Diane?
Yeah, can you explain how you cut the onions again?
Yes, I cut it from pole to pole, you know, from the stem to the bottom,
Stem to bottom, okay.
okay?
Oh wait, no. First you cut off the top.
I cut off the top, you know, the stem and the bottom.
Right,
From pole to pole,
okay.
okay? And then I peel it, and then I take off, can you see I take off a little part here?
Move your hands, yeah.
I take off a part here to make it so it sits in the pan. It doesn't fall in the pan. And then I put in my knife so I can take out a few layers so I can fill it,
Okay,
okay?
yeah,
It's nice to have that extra one.
yeah.
Okay.
Nice
Judith?
to see you, Diane.
Oh, I was just going to thank Wendy and Alicia. It's really wonderful to watch this, and it made me think of my mom. When she was
And I think
making
of your
all of
mom
it.
too. She was one of my first teachers.
Yeah, that's
She's
true.
Cacciatore.
Yeah, real Sephardic dish. So-
All right, well, thank you, everyone. If there are no more questions, I am going to stop my recording. So thank you very much, Wendy and Alicia and John. And
Great
thank
job.
you to the family of Katherine Sharon for sponsoring these classes.